And we are live. Welcome to Fantasy Football Across America. I'm here with Andrew Cooper. How's it going, Andrew?
It's going great, man. This thing you're doing so cool. Honestly, I'm just about to stow away in your van and come for the trip, man. I'm coming for the rest of America. Let's go. 2 episodes without me, and the rest I'm just coming along.
That would be sick. You know, you wouldn't even have to hide. I'll just let you sleep. I'll take the top bunk. You can take the bottom bunk.
Both of us would have to hide from my wife because she would be sending the goons after us, no question.
That's too funny. Yeah, so we're here live coming at you from, is it pronounced Wrentham, Massachusetts?
Yes, when you get to, that's the thing about Massachusetts is half the towns end in HAM, and some of them it's ham, some of them it's some of them it's fam. So you just got to guess, man. I moved from Waltham to Wrentham, and they both end in HAM.
Yeah, that's whack. Not very many hams where I'm from.
Yeah, I feel like they had more where you're from California. They had more time to think about how they were going to design roads and maybe name towns. Out here, it was just whatever Paul Revere rode through. That was the road, and whatever the name of the local natives were, that's the name of the town. That's how it works out here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been driving around Boston these last few days, and that is not a city that is made for driving. I'll tell you that.
Dude, no. And then the crazy part is, like, the people that live there and the cabbies, they act like it's just normal to drive around in that city, and they drive like crazy, right?
Yeah. No, and the funny thing is too, when you're walking around, it's just there's no rules. Like, the pedestrians are going wherever they want. If you miss one turn, like, none of the streets are straight, so forget about finding your way back.
Oh, at some point, they definitely did like a little study on whether they wanted to let you do right turns on red while there's also a walk signal.
Oh,
and
God.
I think they decided at some point that the pedestrians were not as important, because there's plenty of those in the city, let me tell you.
Oh, man. And you mentioned your wife. How's it been? I mean, I remember when I saw you at the expo, you said you had a newborn kid. How's the family?
Yes, I was allowed to escape to the expo because I was work. But now, this last month, craziest it's ever been. Happiest ever been too, though, because it's football and it's family, and it doesn't get much better than that. So it's been busy. I've been working the night shift, looking after the baby, and then all day long talking ball. But I mean, it's all I've ever wanted. So we're happy here.
Yeah, I know. It sounds awesome. And we're going to get right back into it with Andrew Cooper right here. Just quick word from our sponsors.
Hey, people always ask me, what's the World Series of Fantasy? What's the Super Bowl of Fantasy? And it's easy. It's the FFPC. Their signature Players Championship has a $6 million prize pool. And their best ball leagues start in February. And they're the answer to so many questions. Hey, what's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC right now. There's more orphans at the FFPC than anywhere else on the internet. That's why we partner with them. So if you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, you love Dynasty, you love best ball, you love seasonal leagues, all types of fantasy footballers need to go to the FFPC. And remember, use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. Promo code Underworld, $25 off your first team, no matter what the format is, at the FFPC. Go get it.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Across America. I'm here with Andrew Cooper. Just an absolutely lovely summer day. I mean, how's it been? Just tell me, what is the number one thing to do in this part of Massachusetts? We're, I don't know, 10 minutes from Gillette Stadium?
Right. Yeah. So I for a long time lived closer to the city, and honestly, it's nice to be out here where you can actually do a little hiking, go out and experience life without sidewalks and pavement. So
yeah, for
I
sure.
will tell you, like, I know you went to the North End, you did Mike's Pastries, you did everything in Boston. If you get a chance, the people that come out here, I would dedicate a day, if possible, a day to go to Providence, right? And just go and hang out in the capital of Rhode Island. It's an awesome place. It's closer to where I grew up, and there's so much to do there. So, if you do a Boston trip, I would say do a day in Rhode Island, and maybe, if you have time, a weekend on Cape Cod. That's how you do it.
Yeah, you know how it's been this time of year, the content grind, the fantasy grind just gets up there. I've been crashing with a friend of mine over in Cambridge, and then it's just been getting ready for the season. In case you guys don't know, I'm going to be traveling to all 30 NFL stadiums. So if you guys aren't following along on Twitter and Instagram, make sure to go find me there at Dario in a van. And just going to be kicking off the season here in New England with the Patriots. What's the number one thing I should know just to be ready for going into a Pats game?
I mean, honestly, you scheduled this right. And I know a lot of it's based on the trip you planned, but now is the best time to go to a game in Gillette because it does get cold here. There's no doubt about it. And I don't think they like using the snow to an advantage. Tom Brady was amazing in the winter. Obviously, he's gone now, but I don't think they'll ever put a roof on the stadium, build a dome here. They like the snow advantage. So if you can come out here during September, that's the way to rock it. So I think you planned it right, brother.
That was definitely a factor for me because, I didn't want to be dragging my van through the snow and all because Lambeau, can you imagine being there in December? So
Nightmare.
Had to get all these cold weather cities out of the way first. And what better place to start? And I guess they're doing a big celebration for Brady on Sunday too. I didn't even know that when I was mapping out the trip, but this is supposed to be some can't miss event, right?
You got lucky, man. I'm telling you, you nailed it on this one. They're going to do something before the game, like in the pregame, and then there's a full halftime thing. And they're keeping it a big secret. I've been told actually that guys like Albert Breer and those guys have been saying that it's something that's never been done before. So it's not just going to be a statue or a road or something like that. So it's going to be pretty cool, man. And I'll tell you what, the Eagles think they're going to win while Tom Brady's in the house. I don't know about that.
All right. We haven't even gotten to the hot takes part of this episode yet. And then, big part of the thesis of this show is bringing that sort of in-person camaraderie that we have in the fantasy community. A lot of times it's once a year at the expo, but I'm traveling around. I want to get to see people in real life. Very happy that you've made the time to see me. I know it's the busiest time of year. So I want to get people the chance to hear your story, kind of get to know the analyst behind the takes just a little bit better. So, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into making fantasy football content?
Yeah, so I grew up Southern Massachusetts, a place called North Attleboro, and, played football growing up. And I wanted originally to follow in the path of my father. He was a banker, worked in real estate, commercial lending. I went after school. I went to the school called Bentley to do finance and accounting. After school, I got a job as a loan officer. Then I got a job doing commercial appraisals. Then I got a job as the vice president of acquisitions at a commercial appraisal company. Pretty much exactly what the plan was over a 10-year period. But during all that, on the side, I would, I started out just kind of hanging out on Reddit, hanging out on Twitter, doing my own write-ups there. And eventually some people saw the write-ups on Reddit and were like, hey, you should put these on a website. And while I was doing that, this career started to pop, right? And the analytic mind of, appraising property, not too much different than figuring out NFL players. So eventually I got to the point where I was doing both jobs. And at the end of the day, even though there's quite a bit of money in commercial real estate, this is what I love doing. I love nothing more. I said it on my own show this morning. If I won the FFPC contest and won $1 million or won the lottery tomorrow, guess what I'd be doing? I'd be sitting right here with Dario, talking ball, talking about your awesome road trip. Like I would do exactly what I'm doing now because this is what I love to do. So I'm blessed that I'm able to do it for a living because it's not easy. It's not an easy gig. It's not an easy industry, but if you work hard and you care enough about it, then there you go. So my advice to people out there, if you want to get into creating content, start where I did on Reddit. You can post. It's a place where you can post for free. And, and I know people want to get paid to work, but you can post for free and get feedback immediately from real people who will actually look and read your content. If you post something over there, it will get read by people who care about this. And from there, you can, figure out what it is you're going to do. You can get better at this game and then eventually get into it. There's no other place where you can get free feedback like that. So shout out to the Reddit communities. There's no chance I would be doing this if it wasn't for the people over there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, we've done some AMAs with Reddit recently. I'm sure you probably did one too.
Every day's an AMA for me. I'm over there in the comments just arguing every day regardless. So.
No, that's awesome. I'm trying to be more active there just as the season rolls along. I feel like it's one of those, like you said, it's a great place to engage with people, just kind of get your finger on the pulse too, because I feel like the the Twitter hive can be so like hoity-toity almost with like the takes
Well,
and stuff.
I'll tell you what. The way I look at it is this, right? Like, let's say you're a band. If what's one of your favorite bands?
For me, REM.
REM. Let's say you're REM, right? And you put on a concert, an REM concert. Everyone's coming to see you. They bought the tickets that say REM on them. That's Twitter. All your followers are on there, and they already follow you. They already want to hear what you want to say, what you're saying, right? So you get a lot of good feedback. Of course, you get some crazy feedback, but for the most part, the people that follow you are there to see you. Reddit, that's like Bonnaroo, right? They bought a general admission ticket, and the stuff that gets, they don't even care who it is a lot of the times, the stuff that gets posted there. So it's like, if you're REM showing up to a bunch of, a show with a bunch of people, you better be good, right? You better be good, and you better be on top of stuff, and not everybody's going to like it. So that's how I liken Reddit versus Twitter, is that, Reddit, they're not afraid to be brutally honest because they didn't come there to see you. They went there to talk ball.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think it's a big, like, the way that I perceive the fantasy community is a lot on Twitter, but I think Reddit, there's just as many people, if not more, that are really in on it. And that's really cool that that's how you got your start. Another big thing, for people who are listening to this and maybe haven't heard of you, although I don't know how that would be possible, but if anyone out there is your first time hearing Andrew on a show, like, you're kind of known for analyzing tight ends in particular. How did that get to be your MO or your specialty?
So honestly, it came about out of frustration that, across the league, there's obviously very different positions. Analyzing quarterback, nobody tries to analyze quarterback the same way they do running back. Nobody even tries really to do running back the same way they do wide receiver. Some people do, but it's kind of a mistake because there's a lot more variables that go into it. And I just saw too many people looking at tight end exactly the same way they do wide receiver, when it's just a different position. There's different barriers to entry. I mean, the whole idea of pass blocking is the number one thing that people don't even think about, where your wide receiver is never going to do it, but your tight end, regardless of who it is, unless it's Mark Andrews, is going to pass block on more than one pass snap, right? So there's a lot of different variables that go into it. And I just kind of, I figured out a way to separate myself just by putting in more effort, to be honest, on it. And the guy that was the tight end whisperer to me, Howard Bender, right? When I first started, he was the guy that writes the tight end stuff because he was the tight end whisperer. And I had this big spreadsheet that I'd been doing and all this stuff. And I sent it to him and John and Pemba. And I was supposed to do the running backs. I sent that to him and I said, hey, I'm doing the running backs. Why don't you use this for your tight end stuff? And he looked at that spreadsheet and he reached back out to me and he goes, you're doing the tight ends now. And that was the kind of him letting me into the brotherhood of tight end whisperers. And I just want to say, for those out there, the tight end whisperer stuff, that's cool and all. But to me, there's not just, it's like, I treat it like the GOAT. Like, some people say, oh, this is my GOAT. This is, Michael Jordan's my GOAT. This is my GOAT. Whoever you get your tight end advice from, absolutely feel free to call him the tight end whisperer. Theo, who's with PlayerProfiler, they got Dan Williamson. He does a great job. David Gautieri, Howard Bender is my tight end whisperer. So it's okay to use that label for everybody else. I'm giving permission, right? But if people want to come to me for that information, I will guarantee you that I'm working as hard, if not harder, than anybody else at that one position. No question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And would you say you focus more so on like the profile of a tight end coming out of college, kind of like trying to predict their breakout in the NFL, or just once they're in the league, is it mostly the usage? What are like the key indicators that you look at to determine what tight end might break out?
So for me personally, I treat it, we want as many variables included as possible. Think about it, like if you're using an axe, you're only going to be able to cut one way. But the more angles you take to it, the finer you're going to get with the approach, right? So for guys just coming out of college, it's very difficult because, and I'm not a huge film guy, but guys coming out of college, you have to watch the film. You absolutely have to, because there's just different leagues, different levels of competition. You have to see who can break tackles, who can win in man-to-man, who's putting in the extra effort, who knows how to find creases both with the ball in their hand and without the ball in there. Like you have to watch it. Go watch George Kittle's college tape, and you'll see this guy making incredible plays, extra effort. You see that with guys like Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid. From there, my dynasty approach to tight end is sort. SORT. Start opportunity, roster talent. You want to collect as many talented guys as possible, the Dalton Kincaids, and even the Michael Mayers, right? But you need at tight end versus any other position, you need the opportunity. I watch guys like Delaney Walker was stuck behind Vernon Davis for 7 years. He broke out at age 30. Dallas Goedert, the most recent example. With Zach Ertz there, he was capped. Now he's free, right? It's like, and the biggest one that people miss is that it's not even just about being the top tight end on the team. You need to be a top 2 target on the team. So that's what we look for. You want to have as many of these guys in your bullpen, and hopefully the window of opportunity opens. So that's the way I treat the position, especially in Dynasty.
And you mentioned this rookie class. I mean, name drop Laporta, Kincaid, Mayer, Luke Musgrave, also a very exciting name. What was, I guess, if you had to plant a flag on one of these rookie tight ends? I know we've had a tiny sneak peek at Laporta so far. We're recording on Friday. Who's your number one tight end in this class?
Yeah, so I was very high on both Kincaid and Laporta, but and if Laporta went ahead of Kincaid, like if you swap those two guys right now, I would have Laporta 1. But Kincaid, everything just fell right for him. Like we talk about being a top 2 target on the team. This guy, if you go to my profile on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco, there's a pinned article that breaks down every single thing we look for in a tight end. We want them playing wide receiver snaps. We don't want them pass blocking. We want them to be able to be fast enough to have high A-dot routes, to have yak. We want them to break tackles. We want them to basically be a top 2 wide receiver for a team. That's how you get Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Right now, you look at Kincaid and what he does. Like he's basically a wide receiver, and a team just so happened to draft him to play wide receiver. Brandon Beane came out and said Dawson Knox is the tight end, and this guy's going to play slot. And I look at Cole Beasley, right? When he played 30 years old, 31, 32, 30, 33 years old for the Bills, playing only 65, 68% of the snaps in the slot. Just those were his snaps overall. Never in none of those years did he play 70% of the snaps on the season. 100 targets 3 years in a row.
Crazy.
So if you can take a tight end and put him in that position and give me that guy, I'll draft him in redraft. So I'm drafting him in redraft, in Dynasty, all over the place. Kincaid and Laporta.
Yeah, no, definitely both massively exciting profiles. Another thing that I like to ask people on this show, kind of getting more backstory of just your relationship with fantasy football. Do you remember the first draft pick you made in a fantasy league?
Yeah, I do actually. And I had the very first pick in my first fantasy league. Just got lucky that way. And I took Marshall Faulk. So this was 2001. And honestly, back then, you couldn't miss in the first round, really. Like it was all 12 picks in the first round were running backs. And you take Marshall Faulk or LaDainian Tomlinson or Sean Alexander or Priest Holmes. I mean, even if you go back and look at those years, even a guy like Thomas Jones, who was like, RB12, he was running for like 1,400 yards. It was crazy back then. Like it was just easier. It was easier, but we wouldn't have the job. There wouldn't be as many jobs and there wouldn't be as many variables now. So I actually like that the game is harder. It gives us more to talk about, more to do. Back then it was easy. You draft Priest Holmes and then you have Larry Johnson on the bench. And if Priest Holmes goes down, Larry Johnson gets every carry, right? It was easy then. Now it's harder, but I like it. More challenging.
Yeah, the bell count running back is truly a dying breed.
I know.
But you're right. It does make for some opportunities for people like us to give our takes, and sometimes we're right.
Exactly.
Sometimes we're not.
I used to think back then you had less information, right? You had the gas station magazine, the whole deal. But now you have more information, but there's more variables. So and there's guys splitting. There's even tight ends that split. It's a different game now.
For sure. And then kind of along those lines, what's your favorite football memory period? Like whether it's a game you were at or just watching a certain game, if you can't pick one, you can give me a top 2 or 3, but is there any absolute top football memory for you?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a feeling, and there's no moment that's better. And I back in the day, I played quarterback and I played defensive back, and quarterback was what I was, eventually did more of. But playing defensive back, there's a moment that happens if you intercept a pass where your defensive linemen, they turn around and they realize you have the football. And I just remember the look. I remember my buddy Danny McNamara, the look on his face after one interception where he was like, "Oh boy, we got the ball," and he turned around to go block. Like that moment of chaos, and just seeing the smile on their face in that moment where they're like, "Let's go, we got it." Like that, ladies and gentlemen, we got them. Like that is the moment. That is the best moment possible. Because when you get your hands on the ball, it's already exciting, but just to see their faces when they see that you got it, that's the best feeling, man. That's the best one. So I'll always think, I got goosebumps thinking about it right now, man.
That's so sick. Kind of, speaking of last night's game, the only NFL game so far this season, that was like Dan Campbell's reaction to the pick six, seeing him on the sideline, like, holy crap, how did that happen?
We got it. Yeah, it really is.
Exactly.
Because in that's the thing that people don't realize unless you had played that. It is the cameras that we get to watch are amazing, and they make the game look so clear. But when you're on the field, it is chaos. And what these guys are doing is crazy impressive, especially the quarterbacks, being able to see and being able to analyze everything at ground level. But it is total chaos. And when that ball goes up, if you're playing defensive line, you have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? Like until half the time the play ends and you're like, what happened? So it is crazy in that sense. So just wild stuff, man.
For sure. That makes sense. And then I actually have a question for you, a little bit of something you can help me out with. I'm going to be going to every stadium, and I'm curious, like my plan is to review every stadium, right? We need to make a grading system out of this. So to you, what are the absolute key factors to an NFL game day experience that you were looking for?
Yeah, and I'm sure I can't wait to follow up on this when you're done, and I want all the notes from you, but you got to go for the local cuisine, right? Like if you go to Green Bay and you don't get cheese curds, did you go? Right. So right. I can't wait for the list you're going to have on that. And, for New England, we don't necessarily have too many specialties that you would get on game day. That's the thing about it. But I actually do have a hot food take for New England. If you're ready for
all right,
for that.
All right. Let's hear it.
So this might be blasphemy, but I actually am not a huge lobster fan. And this is like the lobster. I know this is dangerous. I apologize in advance. I do like lobster rolls. Like I'll eat. I mean, you throw it cold or hot lobster roll at me, or lobster dinner. The thing is, though, I really think I just like butter. Like I think when you throw like like a hot dog bun in butter and then put it on the grill or on a griddle and fry it up, like you could put anything in there. I'd almost rather have a hot dog in there. That I think I would 100% prefer a hot dog to a lobster roll. And it's an acquired taste, but it just gives, it kind of is a weird, it is a weird thing to be eating about a giant sea bug, I gotta say. But I will say the other stuff here, clam chowder, all those things, I'm fully on board with all of it. And I'm not a picky eater, so I just had a lobster roll the other day. But I'm just saying, there's better food.
Overvalued.
There's better food.
ADP is what you're saying.
There's a reason that back in the day, the peasants used to eat lobster and the big dogs used to eat steak. All right. Look, it only recently became this became the fancy food. For the longest time in history, it was actually what it looks like, which is kind of gross. But I mean, lobster, it is good. It is good if it's done right. And doing a lobster boil with like the corn on the cob and all that, that's an experience. But I'm telling you, it's not. Give me a steak.
That is a hot take. I had, I think, probably my first lobster roll last week in Portland, Maine, and I thought it was pretty good. I think I didn't really know what to expect.
Did you go? Was it cold or hot? One.
I think it was cold.
Okay, yeah. You don't know what to expect, and it's just like the flavor for lobster is actually it's not super anything. Yeah. Right? Exactly. I'm telling you, it's propaganda.
Right. The funniest thing I thought was I got the spicy honey one, and I was in Maine, and it was not spicy. It was like not taste the slightest hint of spice. So
yeah. Maine is great, man. What did you do while you were in Maine? Let me ask you.
I went
I could just watch your show, I guess.
I went to the easternmost point of the U.S. actually, so I drove all the way out to this lighthouse, and you can see Nova Scotia on the other side. It's as far east as you can go in the continental United States. and then I went to Acadia National Park.
Oh, yes. I've been meaning to get up there. I've heard it's amazing.
It is really beautiful. I was there for one day and it rained most of that day, so it was kind of a bummer.
There you go.
But it was still like, I mean, I've stayed one night, so that the evening before it was very like kind of very foggy and over, but like in a beautiful sort of like as the sun was setting, and the cliffs there and the trees. Maine in general was just gorgeous. Like just driving around, there was more hills than I expected, but you're in these like back roads. All you can see is forest in every direction. The coasts were beautiful. Like definitely the most scenic spot I hit on the trip so far as I made my way across the country. So Maine was sick.
Yeah, Maine's cool, man. And yeah, that spot where you were, the most eastern point there, that's actually the closest part of the U.S. to Africa.
Huh.
It's
No
the
idea.
maps will deceive you. I got the globe right next to me here. If you actually look at it, it is the closest part to Africa. And we do have a lot of immigrants from over there. I worked at the outlet mall over here. I worked with a bunch of guys from Senegal and stuff. So
Wow.
a little fun fact there, that Maine, the closest country to Africa. I'm the closest country, closest state to Africa.
Damn. Yeah, I never would have guessed that one for sure.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so like I said, we're recording this on Friday. We've got one NFL game under our belts so far this season. You know what that means. We got to overreact like crazy to this one game. How worried are you about Sky Moore?
So Sky Moore, the thing with him, at least he played the full snap share. Would have liked to see him reel in some more of those passes, but I'm feeling still okay about him. Kadarius Toney is the one that obviously we got to be worried about. I mean, the targets are nice, but that might have been the single worst performance by a position player I've ever seen. Because if you go out there and do nothing, that would have been better than what he did with the drops and the pick six. I think he had 1 receiving yard, but he also had -1 rushing yard, which put him at 0. So he brought 0 yards to the team and offered up a pick six and a bunch of drops. So pretty rough game for him. And again, it's just one game in a small sample size, so maybe he can bounce back, right? But the guy that I was most excited about was Rashee Rice. I think he looked really good out there.
And he got, we talk about targets per route run all the time, and Sky Moore, very concerning in that regard last night. But Rashee Rice, when he was out there, he got the ball, caught his first NFL touchdown. So definitely some encouraging stuff there for him.
For sure, man. I say, hey, you know what? That's the yards. That's why yards per route run has been such a great predictor of breakouts, and also targets per route run is that those stats don't depend on volume. And if you just sprinkle a little more snaps on there, that's how you get it going. So
sticky.
Sure. The thing is, Kadarius Toney was the best on the team in that last year, and that's why we were interested in him. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But it's tough not to walk away disappointed for pretty much all the Chiefs, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, especially from your point of analysis, right? The tight end whisperer. What does that say? What does it say about Travis Kelce? I mean, like, I had buddies texting me last night. It was like, man, Travis Kelce's going to win the MVP after this.
Great. He's that important. And you saw it with Noah Gray where it's just not quite. And I was honestly surprised they tried to use Noah Gray like Travis Kelce. He was lining up at wide receiver. He was going in motion. He was running, real routes. But when you're not Travis Kelce, and especially going up against a team that for the last 3 months or however long since the schedule came out, this team has been sitting there and saying, how do we stop Travis Kelce? So pretty unfair situation to throw Noah Gray in there with a team that has a full game plan to just obliterate you. And it worked really well. So we learned a little something there about Kelce and about Noah Gray. The one true tight end handcuff that exists is Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely is the only guy I think that if the starter's out, I throw him right in there. Not quite rank him at the same spot, but I mean, if Mark Andrews out this week, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't start Isaiah Likely. In the 2 games last year where Andrews was out, he averaged 8 targets a game. So that's the one. I think that's the one real tight end handcuff. There are some handcuff pluses out there, I guess. If like, but they already play. Like if you're going to go Hunter Henry or Mike Gesicki, for instance, they're both playing. Isaiah Likely, you cannot start him, in my opinion, if Andrews is playing. But if Andrews is out, put him right in there.
For sure. And then, like we said, other side of the ball, Sam Laporta. pretty encouraging usage last night. Any specific things that you were focused on with his performance?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Sam Laporta that left us wishing from last night is that there were a couple tackles that he could have broken and got close on one. One of them was just it was basically an arm tackle that he should have broken. He didn't, and to me that was disappointing. But the catching 5 of 5 targets was exciting, and the reason it's disappointing that he didn't break the tackles is that that's his specialty. I've been calling this guy Sam Teleporter because if you go back and look at his college tape, it's crazy. He broke 6 tackles just in the bowl game he played in, and if you go and just watch the GIF of his best play from that game, 4 or 5 of them might have come on one play.
Yeah,
like this guy is elusive, and maybe it was first game jitters, but if he keeps getting 5-6 targets a game, which that's all you need in this world, right? You need either 90 targets or 10 plus touchdowns. Going back 20 years, every top 5 tight end in PPR has had either 90 targets or 10 plus touchdowns. If you get 5 targets a game and a 17 game schedule, that'll get you there. So very encouraging, but just like Jahmyr Gibbs falling down on that one touchdown, we got a glimpse of what could have been very explosive.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think just overall, that was the drumbeat in camp that Laporta was basically the starting tight end and he was getting the full usage. But a lot of times you can hear things and then it doesn't end up being true when that team sets foot on the field. So seeing him actually go out there, get that usage, very encouraging, I would say.
Beautiful. And honestly, even with, I was kind of off Jahmyr Gibbs because I was worried about David Montgomery. As we saw, that's what happened. But in Dynasty, you also got to be happy with what you saw from Gibbs.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll tell you, this guy, his floor to me is it's hard to say his floor is James White. Maybe that's the average because James White was a great player, but his ceiling is Alvin Kamara. And we saw yesterday the contact balance.
Yeah.
The way that he was able to absorb hits and keep going, turn 5-yard plays into 12-yard plays. And he, like some guys, when contact comes around, they're acting like the play's over. Jahmyr Gibbs was running like the play was just getting started.
Yeah.
When the contact was happening, the way he'd spin out and the way he'd get through. So very encouraging to see for him. And I think he's going to have a long and fun career, and hopefully the touches come. But
100%.
Yeah.
I think, Dan Campbell was a coach under Sean Payton for a while in New Orleans, probably when they had Kamara's rookie year. And I remember that year you had Ingram and Kamara both, I think, top 12, if definitely both top 24. I think they might have both been top 12.
Mark Ingram was in full PPR. Mark Ingram was RB7 and Alvin Kamara was RB3.
Jeez.
Yeah. And they traded away Adrian Peterson because they had Adrian Peterson too, and they just were like, we don't even need you, man.
Yeah. So
crazy.
I mean, that was what I was getting shades of, the way that those guys were deployed last night. And Jahmyr Gibbs did have that extra explosive gear, but behind that offensive line, the sky's the limit for both those guys.
Yeah, it's just watching Penei Sewell, you could see how like he wasn't satisfied when the runs were going to the other side. He wasn't satisfied with just blocking at one level. He was blocking at the next level, the third level, and that's all from coaching. That's from like guys like Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell. They're not going to just do that on their own. That's the coach putting it in your mind that the play isn't over till the whistle's blown. And that's the difference a lot of times between a play that goes for 10 yards and a play that goes for 70. So love to see that out of those guys, man. That's a mean looking team.
Yep. And then, all right, I'm got to get you some more general NFL questions. Who's one team that you think wins their division this season that is currently not favored to win their division? Like, give me one surprise division winner for you.
Ooh, I like that one. To be a surprise division winner, I wouldn't be. And then this might be crazy, but I actually wouldn't be surprised to see the deepest one that I want to say is the Packers. Honestly, that's crazy, and because of how good the Lions looked, and we know the Vikings are good, and we know the Bears are good, but the thing with guys like Jordan Love that sit and wait behind a starter like Aaron Rodgers is that we have no idea what we're getting here. With Patrick Mahomes, we had no idea what we were getting, and he came out and threw 50 touchdown passes. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but the rest of this team is still good. They have good, obviously good running backs. They've got some young weapons. I don't think it's crazy for the Bears, who were just the worst team in the league, right, to have trouble. And this Lions team, I still think they're a little thin, honestly, with pass catchers. Jameson Williams, we need him to come back and be great. But I'll tell you what, Marvin Jones, if he was good, he would have had a good game yesterday. But
Yeah.
he looked a little bit old out there. And he's a great player. He's a veteran, and he's whenever he does hang him up, we'll look back on a great career. But I think at this point, he did look like he was having a hard time out there. So I don't know. I think it's entirely possible, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think that Jordan Love, the hype definitely started to build during the preseason there. Did you see that Christian Watson got ruled out today?
Yeah,
for
that's
week 1?
So week 1, that's going to be tough. But again, that was one where, I'm surprised all this hype about the Bears and the spread on that game, even in Chicago, was 2.5. And they tell you you're supposed to get 3 points as the home team. So even Vegas wasn't buying it at first. But now with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson banged up, could be a little tougher run,
Yeah.
And
Some targets for Luke Musgrave probably.
So here's the thing. I like him in DFS, but we got to be really careful with that because I look around and a lot of us want to say there's less target competition. But what scares me for Luke Musgrave this week is Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson, I thought, could be ruled out with the ankle, but he's going to play. There's a couple guys in this league that are tight end killers. The Patriots have Kyle Duggar. He is a problem for tight ends. Matt Milano on the Bills does a good job. Obviously, Derwin James, he power bombs Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
But Eddie Jackson, if they decide they want to just take Luke Musgrave out of the game by putting Eddie Jackson on him, it would be a long day for Luke Musgrave. So for me, I'm willing to throw him in a DFS, but just be very careful because, and that's another thing that's so difficult with the tight end position is that one team plays the Chargers and they have a good tight end. They have Travis Kelce. They put Derwin James on that guy.
Right.
Another team plays the Chargers and their tight end's just okay. They won't waste Derwin James on that guy. And now that tight end has an okay day. It's like, it makes the start sit so difficult, but we're going to do our best. Right. And I'll just tell people right now, if Luke Musgrave goes off, it's because the wide receivers are hurt and there's nowhere else to throw it. If he does not go off, I'll tell you the name that's going to be responsible. That's Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, no, for me, that's like one of the toughest things is people look at the opponent versus position, and that's always just like too simplistic for him. I think that when that's the genesis of your take is just, we're grouping by the entire position and this opponent defense, like I got to see a little more than that. Like you can't trust just that one statistic to tell you, because like you said, right. I think especially early in the season when defenses are only a sum of the offenses they've played so far. So definitely not until like at least week 6 I even start to consider that as a variable. But even then, I think you have to be really careful with just noticing the trends, because a lot of times it has to do with game script, play volume. Those are the real drivers of fantasy points. Yes. And a lot of times a defense will look really bad against wide receivers, but in reality, it's just been the slate of wide receivers they've had to face so far combined with the game scripts. So I think definitely be really careful with that when you're making your start-sit decisions.
For sure. I mean, Eddie Jackson, perfect example. Last year, the Bears were one of the better teams against the tight end when he was playing. Then he got hurt. Brock Wright scored 2 touchdowns against him, right? Against them without Eddie, and Dawson Knox scores a touchdown next week. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like the Bears are terrible against the tight end, and it's just it's crazy how it goes that way.
Yep. No, but the unpredictability is what makes the sport so fun, right? Like we've spent all off season thinking we have all this information, generating all these takes, and 3 weeks from now, we're going to look back and look at the ADP and be like, God, what were we thinking?
Every single year. And that's what makes it so much fun. And it allows for everyone to play and everyone to have a chance to win. Like our job here is to increase our odds of winning by any means necessary, but anyone can win. Anyone can win. And that's what makes it so much fun. I wouldn't want it to be, I know some people they like removing the tight end and they like removing the kicker and the defense. And so it's only running backs and wide receivers, and you can go all analytics and maybe give yourself a better chance or whatever. But I think it's more fun the way it's supposed to be played, with all the positions and you and your buddies and your coworkers and you're throwing teams together and anyone can win, Dave from accounting or, Dario Offstein traveling the country to see every single stadium. You know what I mean? Anybody can win.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful game.
Truly.
We get paid to talk about. I love it. And before I let you go, I got to get one more prediction from you. What is the Patriots record this season?
So the way I look at it, the over-under is 7.5. And when you look at some of the teams that are supposedly not good teams that have good coaches, that's where the line seems to always be set, right? Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel, like they're never going to set those lines lower. I think the Patriots are good enough to win 8 or 9 games. I think that they're going to be a thorn in the side of the teams in this division. And I could see I don't think they win. This team isn't built to win a playoff game. I could see them going, but I don't think they're a team that's built to win anything now. I am excited to see Bill O'Brien, though. I will say that. The last time Bill O'Brien was coaching this team, 2011, they had the tight end 1 in fantasy, the tight end 3 in fantasy, because they had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. And while that was happening, they also had Wes Welker get 173 targets. Jeez. So I think they're building basically like a Costco brand version of that, where Mac Jones is Tom Brady and Hunter Henry's Rob Gronkowski and Mike Gesicki's Aaron Hernandez and Juju Smith-Schuster's Wes Welker. Every one of those options is worse, but hey, Ramondre's better than the running back we had at the time. So you can see what they're trying to do, right? And I think you can win games doing that. It's just these other teams, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, just awesome. Like the Dolphins, even any one of those 3 teams could easily win the division. So I don't think the Patriots can win the division, but I think they can steal a couple games from those teams and beat up on some of these other teams they're playing.
It's definitely looking like one of the best divisions in football, if not the best, because the AFC West was all the hype last year. The Raiders going into this year, pretty concerning. Broncos, a lot of question marks.
Right.
But with that, so you got to pick. Is it 9 and 8 or is it 8 and 9?
I'm gonna go 8 and 9. I'm gonna go 8 and 9, which will get it'll give you the over, but that schedule's pretty tough. And it's just gonna be Bill Belichick brute force winning games with scrappy moves. That's the way they do it.
Alrighty, there you have it, folks. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And that's it for episode 3 of Fantasy Football Across America. Stay tuned in. I'm going to be getting some other great guests on in the coming weeks as I travel around the entire country. It's been super awesome chatting with you here. And make sure to like, subscribe, sign up for Player Profiler if you haven't. And you want to let the people know where to find you, what content you're going to be putting out this season?
Absolutely. So find me on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. I tweet out all the articles I do, all the things I write from there. And then this year, you can find me on SiriusXM Sunday mornings, game day slate, 10 to 11 a.m. We're going to be out there getting you ready for football. So channel 87 on SiriusXM. Check us out. Me and Howard Bender at Fantasy Alarm. It's going to be awesome.
That's sick. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Peace out.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.